Cue-to-carry board.
Cue-to-carry board.
Cue-to-carry.
So we had to explain to Drew that way you remember that it's the Baby Shark song. It's a charcuterie board.
Welcome to Woodshop 101. This is episode 156 for May 16th, 2019. I'm Jeremy Crawford of the Countryside Workshop, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Drew Short of Rockin' H Woodshop, and our special guest host, Jess from Crow Creek Designs. What's going on?
Hello, boys.
Since this is take number 2, so everybody knows, take number 2 of recording this show.
Wardrobe change.
Yes.
This may not, it may not sound as good as it did the first time. So
it may sound better because now she's more prepared and knows a little bit about what she's getting asked.
Yeah, well, actually, the problem is I can't remember any of the questions that you asked me. So
that's good. I'm going to throw in random questions in there. So,
all right, let's have it.
Well, hang on. Slow your roll. All right, well, I want to thank our patron supporters first because they help us sit down. They paid for me to come to Alaska, so not really, but thank our patrons, John Ramminger, Sean McHenry, Carl Mose, Neil Sims, Eric Rhoten, and Kenneth Aponte. I sure hope I say your name right.
We always slow down at that point. Kenneth Aponte.
Yeah. If you want to become a patron of our Patreon campaign, head over to patreon.com/woodshop101. All our patrons will receive an after show twice a month as a benefit. You can also support our show by purchasing some podcast swag over at countrysideworkshop.com/shop. While you're at it, go leave us a 5-star rating on any of the podcast players of your choice. And we want to thank our sponsor for today's episode, which is Organic Recreations Woodshop. They did our new logo, and they're hands down one of the best graphic designers I've had the pleasure of working with. I've worked with them twice now with my logo and the podcast logo. Sam's worked with them on her logo. Drew needs to work with them on his.
I like my logo.
Yeah, that doesn't mean they can't do something else. Figure something out. But no, seriously, these guys are like super awesome to work with. Willie and his wife are just like down to earth, and if you don't like what they design, they're just going to keep working with you until they get out something that you like. So go check them out. Go to bit.ly/OR Woodshop, and that will send you straight over to their page to check out all the different like logos they've done for all the makers and stuff out there. So let's jump right into let Jess kind of introduce herself. Remember, this is your elevator speech. Okay, yes. Don't give us 20-minute background about why you have an elevator speech. Just give us your elevator.
Gosh. You mean 20 seconds? Okay. Yeah. So I am Jess with Crow Creek Designs. I am here in Alaska, where Jeremy currently is. I have a woodworking and art background, so I have taken and emphasized on making pretty artful furniture with resin and ink. Is that better, boss?
Yes. Man,
that was more than 20 seconds.
Somebody calls me boss. I like that. That's awesome. Yeah, so if you haven't checked out her work, she does seriously some cool epoxy work and some like alcohol ink stuff. It's cool. It's really, go check it out.
She's the Yoda of art resin.
Yep.
And any kind of resin for that matter.
All right, well, we're going to jump in. We're going to ask you some random questions. You should already know what these are, but like you said, you don't remember.
I've slept since then.
Exactly. What is your favorite season?
Okay, fall. I remember fall.
That's not what you said last time.
Yeah. Well, I remember the question now because I remember fall, because fall is always my favorite season.
Why is fall your favorite season?
Because of the colors. It's the colors. It's orange and red and green and brown, and the smell of the earth as it's just shifting. It's just, you're talking to an artist, so we go on to the next question because I'll just keep going.
Jeremy, I'm going to test you. What color is it where you live in the fall?
It is either green or dead.
Green or dead.
I was gonna say brown.
Yeah, it's either green or dead.
Winter is brown. Spring brown.
No. Spring and summer is every bit green, and the grass grows entirely too fast. Where I got to mow it like 2 to 3 times a week. So, like I said, it's either green or dead. So, all right, Drew, what's your first question?
Favorite beer?
The Matanuska Blueberry. Currently. Normally it would be a dark beer, but Matanuska Blueberry is my current favorite.
And you said that's a local brew?
Yeah. Matanuska Brewing Company makes it. And so it's I don't think it's a microbrew, or is that what those things are called?
I don't know the terminology, but I would probably call it like a microbrewery because there's only 2 of them, right? And his third one's getting ready to open up, right?
Well, that's the restaurant. That's the restaurant. So I don't necessarily know that. Where
he brews his. I don't know.
Yeah. But so anyway,
it is a local spot that only has like a couple different like locations that serve it, and they also bottle it.
Yes.
So
I definitely love that, but my go-to would definitely be a dark beer.
All right.
Quick little thing on that. So when I got back to the hotel last night from eating dinner with you, I went out and hung out with the guys I'm here with, and they had Alaska Brewing Company beer. And I was like, dude, I told you Matanuska was the best around here. You should have gone and got that. And I just drinking it the whole time. I'm like, man, I really hate you. I really hate this. Like, it's a good beer. But I really like Matanuska too. I think it had some of the better beers that I've had here so far. So
I'm not quite sure what you're going to do when you leave between the Snickers, mochas, and the beer.
I don't know, because I definitely had another one of those today. I even sent Jess a picture. I had 3 of them in a coffee tray. I was like, bet you can't guess what's in these.
Yeah.
But I am getting another butter one tomorrow.
Junkie.
Yep.
He is. He's become an Alaska junkie.
So, all right. Well, let's jump into the second one. What do you enjoy doing besides epoxy and woodworking and inking? Alcoholic inking.
I enjoy beading with a D.
Like beating. Like she beats people.
Like, I should have kept it around my desk. So, like, beading items, beading intricate necklaces and sculptures, dragonflies, cubes.
And we're not talking about like these big pony beads. We're talking about these things that are the size of like a pencil, like the very tip of a pencil.
Yeah, like you could thread a hair through them, and that's the only allowance that they have. So micro sculptures, but that they're like the dragonflies. They're life size. They fit in your hand.
No, you send me pictures so I can put them in the show notes.
What kind of line do you have to use?
Actually, fire line.
What's fire line?
Fishing line.
Okay, well, anywhere else in the world we call that the fishing line.
Fishing.
Oh.
Why would you call it fire line?
It's
do you put it through the fire?
That's the brand.
Oh, okay. Is it kind of like spider wire and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think. I think it's like spider wire.
If it's a brand of fishing line, then yeah, I mean spider wire and Suffix, those are all brands of fishing line.
Yeah, I've got some over there, but they make it in different sizes, and it works great. So they market it differently for beaters. They actually, they actually market it for beaters, and it's the exact same thing.
So then why don't you buy the cheaper stuff and just go get fishing line?
I actually do. I go down to Sportsman's Warehouse and buy the fishing line version of it.
She's not stupid. She knows what she's doing.
You haven't spent the last week with her.
Apparently, you don't want to have to go back either.
No, I do. I want cookies.
No cookies for you.
Yeah.
Yes. I need cookies. She's extremely smart and talented, and she's the Yoda of woodworking. So.
Okay. What have you always wanted to try that you have been too afraid to do?
Race car driving.
Well, that was different than last time. She can't remember what she said.
No, I do. I remember on take 1, I said skydiving. And so, skydiving and driving a race car. Figured I'd throw it up a little bit.
Race car? Is it just because it's 200 miles an hour going around a track?
Oh, man, I like to go fast. That's kind of why I like the skydiving thing. Is exciting to me. The jumping out the plane part, no, not so much, but the actual falling part, going that fast. Yeah, you know.
It's not the jumping part, it's the falling part. It's the splat part at the end. Yeah,
I think driving 200-300 miles an hour, gosh, wouldn't that be exhilarating?
Yeah, but but it's supposed to be afraid to do. It doesn't sound like you're afraid to do that.
No, I am actually, because
why she hadn't done it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can go down to Vegas and stuff and race on race car tracks, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never been.
Yeah, you can. You can also rent like supercars and drive supercars around the track.
Yeah.
So
cool. I just think that I would hit like the 120 mile an hour mark and chicken out. You know, so I would need to kind of again have somebody push on my leg to just freaking throw it down.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into what's going on in the shop. Drew, what do you got going on right now?
Well, I am working currently on the restaurant tabletops for Houston. Actually, because this is take 2, I have been getting them prepped for stain and finish. It's been kind of slow going just because I'm filming this process, and anybody that knows about doing YouTube is easily triple your time when you film something. So these tables are almost ready to go, and I've got the hickory table. You guys can see it right there, probably.
No, we can't because we're on a blurred background.
Oh, dang, I forgot about the blurred background. Well, if you guys have seen my YouTube channel, you've probably seen the video recently, but I just recently finished the hickory table, and it's getting ready for finish before too long. But the problem is that I've got storms coming in Friday night, Saturday all day, takes a break on Sunday, and then I got Monday and Tuesday with more storms. So spraying lacquer in high humidity type settings is really, really bad. So I can't spray anything until the humidity goes back down. But I'm trying to consider, because a conversion urethane is typically what you use for restaurant tabletops. So I'm trying to consider if Rubio Monocoat is strong enough to handle the wear and tear that a restaurant gives a table. I
don't know. So I know we talked about this, and Rubio Monocoat was designed to be a floor finish, but I don't know if it was designed to be like a commercial floor finish, where they put it in commercial buildings that see like excessive amounts of traffic. So I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, I think so, because they use it on showroom floors.
It would have to hold up to heat, wet, and like plates sliding around on it.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's waterproof. I know once it's fully cured, because if you go to their website, or maybe it's their Instagram, you can see where they've done puddle tests. It just beads
in
right
fact,
off.
They just did one sometime this last week. They did a puddle test, but I don't know. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it would hold up, but I don't know if I would do it if I were put in your position right now, right? Because you know how the lacquer is going to do. The pre-cat lacquer.
I don't. Pre-cat lacquers, they are strong, but I don't know if it'll hold up to the abuse a restaurant can dish out. But
I think it'll hold up better than a polyurethane will.
Yeah, well, it may be pretty equal, but a conversion varnish that is like a post-cat, those are just they're equivalent to like granite, and they don't get sticky. If you ever gone to a restaurant and the table is clean but it feels sticky, that's polyurethane.
Yeah,
and that's not good. But a conversion varnish is typically what they use for restaurant tabletops, and I don't know. That's the kind of
Conversion varnish you have to mix yourself, right?
Before it's a post-cat, so you have to mix it at your shop.
Yeah.
And you have to do a little bit at a time, because if you mix the whole thing, then the shelf life is like 24 hours.
Yeah.
And if you leave it in your gun, if you don't clean your gun right away too, it can ruin your gun. So you have to make sure that it's clean right after.
I don't know. The thing I like about Rubio is it's a one and done. It's one coat and it's done.
Yeah. That's what I like about it too. But it's also really expensive.
Yeah, it is. But you have to remember to, I mean, for you, Drew, right now, it probably wouldn't be a good idea because you haven't calculated that cost into whatever it was you've got going on. But in future projects, just capture that cost if you're going to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing because...
What's the cost? Because like a conversion varnish is like $75 a gallon.
So
this is like 200 plus.
Well, for a gallon, but you wouldn't need a gallon. So that gallon of conversion varnish will give you how many coats per table?
Oh crap, man! A gallon goes a long way with me. I mean, I could probably put about 12 to 13 coats on a table and that's maybe half a gallon.
Yeah. So you're talking.
I'm looking.
So you're talking that conversion varnish will give you a lot. It will cover a lot. So that $75 will cover more than those. What, 5? You have the 5 tabletops right now?
Yeah, I got to do both sides.
Yeah. So it will give you more than those 5 tables, right? So now you can use that on another project here or there. So you wouldn't necessarily need. You're definitely not going to need a gallon of Rubio.
On Amazon Prime, 1.3 liters of pure, their base one, is $162.
Yeah.
Woof.
Well, yeah, their smaller can. The
little mini, the micros are $25 for 100 mils.
Well, that's for the bottle, right?
Yeah, that's the
can
part A.
Yeah, the next can up that actually has the accelerator attached to it's like $65.
That's what I'm looking at.
No, I just bought one. I just bought one that's $65. No, that's the big can. They have a can smaller than that where the accelerator sits on top.
That is sitting on top.
Look. No. So
moving on.
Okay, point being, Rubio's still an expensive product.
It is worth the money.
Yeah, it is. And it would probably be a good idea for this hickory table, but these restaurant tables, I'm still debating.
We got to pull Jeremy back in. He's over there Googling.
Yeah. So you said $160.
I'm explaining to you what it showed me on my Amazon.
Okay, but so that's the 1.3. They have a 350.
You're right, honey.
mil.
It's okay. You're right.
No.
I agree. You're right.
Oh.
Look, this has to be an educational thing.
It
right?
is.
So a
I'm educating you.
And I'm educating you. Look, 350 mil is $50. Yeah, no, I got blurred background. So that's what I'm saying. It's expensive, but I don't know how much you would even need for 5 tabletops for both sides.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm. We don't have
Drew,
an answer.
how do you say the little board? How do you say the name of the little board things that I make?
Charcuterie board, duh.
No. How do you say
it? Okay, our first take. I don't make these things. I called it a cute-a-carry board.
Cute-a-carry board.
Cute-a-carry.
So we had to explain to Drew that way. You remember that it's the Baby Shark song. It's a charcuterie board.
Charcuterie.
Yeah. So
is it cuterie or cooterie?
Charcuterie.
Yeah.
Charcuterie. Okay.
So back to these cute-a-carry boards. This kind of ties into what you've kind of been doing in the shop, Jess. So tell us what you've been working on.
Well, seeing as we're now on take 2, I did a couple of things today. I did a couple of experiments, which included kind of a resin, well, not kind of, a resin ink geode serving tray type thing that I don't know how it turned out. I'm working on a collaboration with somebody, and I did the final flood coat on that today. And then I've got a countertop. Yep, I've got a countertop and a kitchen table that are all being worked on.
That's taken up her entire shop floor, pretty much.
Well, at least an eighth of my shop floor, and it's annoying.
Yeah, but they're pretty slick looking. I mean, it's that Alaskan birch, like the tabletop. I don't know if I would even want to put finish on it. Like, it just looks so nice. Like, because she got the live edge on one side, right, on one of them, and then it's on both sides.
Yeah.
On
the countertop, it's on the what you would be kind of the guest side, the bar side, and then on the kitchen table, it's on both long leading sides.
Yeah, so it looks pretty slick. We did, since take one, did help her out, and she poured this massive, like six. It's got at least, I think it's longer than 6 feet, but
it is. Well, it's 6.5 feet.
Okay, so like this wall art, and I was pretty amazed at like how quickly the resin part of it goes. Like, I thought we'd be out there for like an hour and a half pouring resin, and she's like, in 20 minutes the resin work's done. So
that's because she does this all the time. Now, if you did it,
I mean, it'd be done in 20 minutes, but half of the resin would be on me and the floor and the wall and the dog and the kids, and the kids would be at school, and I don't know how they would get resin, but it would. So,
speaking of which, what do you use for a drop cloth, Jess?
I like using the either wax paper for smaller projects. If you're going to pour inside your house, because some people don't have shop space, wax paper or parchment paper is usually available. And then 4 or 5 mil plastic that you get from like Home Depot or whatnot. It peels right off. Let it sit and dry, and it pulls right up.
I know this.
Because somebody was like a 2-year-old.
I sit in her shop and peel the epoxy off of the 5 mil plastic. And it's like, it's the paint drop cloth, right? So it's the thicker paint drop cloth that you can get. Yep. And so they're relatively cheap. I think like $7 or $10 or something like that.
Yeah, it's really cheap, and you can get a lot, and you can use it many, many times. So,
for those that haven't been following on social media and stuff, I'm up in Alaska, been working in Jess's shop with her, kind of hanging out. She's been feeding me way too much food, and I can't complain.
Cookies.
Cookies and breakfast and everything else. Cheesesteaks and chili, and what else did we have? We had some fettuccine or Alfredo.
Sun-dried tomato basil pasta.
Yeah.
Oh man, I bet that's good.
So
I love sun-dried tomatoes.
It was all good. And then I ate breakfast at my hotel today with like extra burnt eggs and like old sausage. I was quite disappointed. But anyway, so that's really what I've been up to, is just kind of hanging out, learning some of the epoxy stuff. Before I left, and in fact, when I get home in another week and a half, I'm got to wrap up a couple shadow boxes, memory boxes. One of them is being built into like an antique trunk, which is proven to be, I don't want to say more difficult, just more time consuming. Because nothing is 90 degrees, nothing lines up, so everything has to be like, you got to figure out the custom angle to make the trays to fit perfectly within the box. So it's been a process, and I think it looks pretty cool. I did some CNC work on it, what basic CNC work I know how to do. But that's look, I only really know how to do like words. I don't know any of this fancy software.
No pockets, no inlays.
I don't know how to do some pockets and stuff. I don't know how to do the inlays. I don't know. But that's also because I think it's the limitation of the software that I use. I use what comes with the Shapeoko. But I definitely want to upgrade and try like Aspire or VCarve. something like that. But I got to pick up a Windows computer in order to do that. So that will be on the agenda once I move, or maybe I'll get it, and so the summer while I'm kind of transitioning between shop, I can play with the software a little bit. But that's pretty much what I've had going on, and I've put Jess to work on our, like, we're doing a collaboration. I kind of put her to work. I was like, here, cut this, and her jigsaw work comes out smoother than what my sanding work does.
Like, what kind of jigsaw do you use, Jess?
I just have a DeWalt. Actually, I need a new one. It's the same DeWalt I've been running for a really long time. I like jigsaw, and usually I'm super smooth on the bandsaw too, but this is a very awkward piece, and I had some skipping, so I cut one angle that way, two angles that way, and I didn't really like the way that so I was like, yeah, no, we're done doing this, and then started jigging them out. Yeah, smooth as silk, except for I can tell you I do not like working with bamboo. Like, not a fan. I've got little prickly splinters everywhere. Oh. It's like little thorns in that.
Well, it's kind of like I've heard it compared to like Wingy. Wingy's kind of splintery.
Yeah, it does. It does. It splinters out like that, mainly because it's a grass,
like a reed.
But once the finish is on it and stuff, like, it's just the bamboo warms up, and it looks very beautiful, and it's because of how it comes. It needs very minimum sanding. You can go straight to a 220 or a 180. So there's no, like, going to the 40, the 80 on up. So the sanding part of it is definitely the step up. But
yes, it does look. I got a really good picture. I was trying to see if I could find the picture of said project.
Well, but yes, you can show it because they're going to see it before this video part of it comes out. You can show Drew what it looks like and show me what it looks like. Seems how when I left last night, you're like, I'm going to do something different tomorrow.
Well, I wasn't super thrilled with how it had kind of turned out, and I got frustrated. Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yep, it's slick.
That's pretty.
Now I'm going to have to figure out how to make it a little bit more grippy so I don't just, like, slip and bust my butt while I'm trying to ride that thing.
His arse.
So, all right. Well, we definitely have to dive into some epoxy questions and learn a little bit about the ins and outs of it, because I know that's probably what you're most commonly known for is the bright, vibrant colors that you get both in your epoxy and your ink work on your Cuticarry boards.
Shut up.
So, what? Let's start off with what kind of epoxy, or give us a little bit of backstory on some of the epoxies that you've used, and why you use which ones for what type of projects.
So, application-wise, I have used everything from Stone Coat to Total Boat to right now I'm getting ready to tinker with countertop epoxy, I believe it's called. Polymer Technologies. For everyday use that's not going to be a furniture use, I really like art resin, but you can't use that in a furniture application at all. It's just way too soft. So if you're going to use that, you have to put another hard coat on it, something like the Total Boat tabletop, which lately has become kind of my favorite. It's super self-leveling, and it works really well for sealing and being food safe, and just a good one. I have not used their deep pour, though, and I've been seeing a lot of reviews on it, but I have not used it.
Okay. So in what instance, so you said like everyday use, would you use the art resin on top of a tabletop, or would you, what?
No, I would use art resin on like a wall art piece, on a serving tray, a clock, something like that, a Lazy Susan.
Something that's basically a real like super thin coats.
Yeah, art resin you can only do in 1/8 inch layers. So if you are going to be doing anything more than that, you're going to be there for a really long time.
Because that's what I ran into that problem too. Because I made those. I don't know if you saw them, but they were crosses, like epoxy crosses. And the gentleman that was doing the collaboration with me told me to get this specific resin, but he didn't tell me how to use it. And it was art resin. So after I was done, the crosses were kind of pliable and not.
Yeah, if you want something flexible, do a deep pour with that, and you pretty much have rubber.
That's kind of what it was.
Yeah, it'll be like rubber, but that's where you have to pick something different. You have to pick. Everybody thinks resin is like a one size fit all, that you can go down to Home Depot or your local craft store and they're all going to respond the same. Resin epoxy is a chemical catalyst, and each and every single company makes theirs different. So, and then you start adding stuff to it and you start changing the way it reacts. So experimenting, first learning on the resin that you think you want to use is imperative. And then after that, experimenting in small batches.
Yeah. So art resin is very soft.
Yes.
Right. So so if you're going to use it, say you use it to do one of your Maui waves on a kitchen table, you go back over it. You said with like the tabletop epoxy or something that's going to harden
it would get a complete flood coat. First, it would get a leveling, which brings the wave up. Well, brings the table and the wave together, and then it gets a complete leveling kit, a flood coat over it.
So, what do you use for the leveling?
I would use the Total Boat.
Okay, so you just do a couple different layers of it.
Yep, you got to build it up. Like on the big, giant 16-foot Maui wave that had the 4-foot extension, that ended up being about 4 layers, just because it had to be brought up so gradually because there were so many waves in there, and then 2 flood layers because it was going in a restaurant and I really wanted it to be as durable as possible.
Yeah. Okay.
So do you ever see like any border lines from each layer? I mean, as you're pour on top of another?
Well, not on the full flood coats. You'll see them sometimes, like on the collaboration board that Jeremy and I are working on. I don't see it at all. But I guess maybe if you were trying to do different colors, which I may have done, and it looks wicked cool.
But it's not like super obvious, like clear on clear. You don't see.
No, it is seamless.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about coloring epoxy without giving out too much detail, because we want everybody to go check out your tutorial and stuff that you do on that. But what are some of the different options to get color in epoxy versus maybe thinner layers like what you do, all the way up to like what Black Forest Wood Company does with super thick layers?
Yeah, well, if you're using, a lot of people love, and you get a lot of luster and glimmer if you're using the mica powders. And then I'm pretty sure that most companies nowadays, so there's Black Diamond, which does the powders, and they do bright, vibrant colors. Then I know that Epoxy, Art Resin, and Polymer all have released in this past year dyes that are specific for their resin. So I've been seeing some vibrant colors come from those, but I've never used them. I prefer to make my own because I like the effects that I get with them. But I think for beginners, probably sticking with those until you understand color theory and how your resin is going to work would be a good idea.
Yeah, because whatever you mix with it, right? You're telling me you don't want to change the consistency of the resin, or else it won't necessarily set up or cure correctly.
Yeah, if you start, there's a very fine line with each resin with how much stuff you can add to it before you start altering how it's going to respond. Okay.
And I know that one of the things that you told me is whenever you start experimenting, mixing things, that you never want to put like anything that has water in it.
Yeah. If it says water in it, if like somebody asked me once, can I add watercolors? No, you cannot. I guess maybe you could add I'm just thinking now of like those little Crayola discs that we used to have as a kid.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly those are made of, so I still wouldn't. Well, I would do it because I like experimenting, but anything with water is going to make your resin not set up. So if as soon as you introduce water into any situation like that, you're going to have goopy spots wherever you didn't. If you add resin straight up to your cup, you just wasted all your resin. If you were just like sprinkle it on there or spray it on there, you're going to have goopy spots that will not set up.
Okay. So what else? Let's talk about using epoxy for the charcuterie boards, serving trays. Can I just go grab any type of epoxy and put that on, say, my cutting board and my charcuterie board that I want to hand to my mom for a late Mother's Day present?
No. So art resin currently holds, to my knowledge, and this is, those little memes that says prove me wrong. Okay. Art resin currently holds, to my knowledge, the highest ranking for food grade resin. You can actually heat theirs and eat off of it. And I know we've had a lot of discussions on, well, you'd pretty much have to ingest it in order to make you sick. But some people are hypersensitive, to chemical things. So versions of Total Boat are food safe, which means that they're FDA approved for contact with food. It doesn't mean that you can. And then again, here's another thing. The moment you introduce something like a dye, a colorant, anything into that, with the exception of art resins, those are the only ones that I've ever seen that their dyes are the same, you completely negate all of those qualities. So if you take Total Boat tabletop and you dump a bunch of pigment into it, you've completely voided the fact that it's food safe. So you'd have to do a flood coat on top of it. So if you're selling a charcuterie board or another item as anything other than for display purposes, you need to be reading those manufacturer instructions. Because if somebody comes to you and they get sick, and even if they didn't get sick off your board, if they come to you and they're like, oh my gosh, my great grandmother twice removed got poisoned from your board, and then they're like, well, prove to us that you used a food safe resin, you better hope you've got some receipts or some tracking information of something. I think as a lot of small businesses don't take into consideration that sometimes people are buttheads, and if somebody was to come after you and you don't have a leg to stand on, it can make you have a bad day in a quick way. Yeah,
it could quickly ruin your business as well.
Yeah.
So, sometimes depending on the scale of it, could be to the point of not coming back from it, so it's,
well, no, I mean, unless you're an LLC, you're not protected.
Yeah. But even then, even if you're an LLC, it could ruin the reputation, and that's, so you may legally be covered where they can't touch your personal assets, but you may not sell another thing in your life because of your reputation has been ruined based off of one allegation.
Well, and on top of that, you just want to be a good person. I mean, if you're selling something that you're marketing as a serving tray, you want to be making sure that the product that you're using, whatever it may be, whatever your resin of choice is, the variant of that is a food safe product. It's just called being a legit person.
Yeah.
So these resins that are countertop resins, are they also food safe?
Yeah, I have not seen one that is labeled countertop that has not been. Stone Coat is, the countertop epoxy, Counter Effects, I think is what it's called. I'd have to double check, so don't quote me on that one. Total Boat tabletop, those ones were all rated, FDA rated for contact with food.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's plenty more, but those are the ones that I'm aware of.
But if they're pigmented in any way,
yep,
you negate that.
Yes. So you have to do a flood coat. So strictly straight resin, you have to do a flood coat.
And we're sure that pigments, there's no pigment out there that is a food safe kind of pigment.
Art Resin has them, but I have not researched enough to know any of any others. So there may very well be. I am just not aware of them.
I'm just curious because one of my clients had his countertops, that kitchen that I resprayed. He had his countertops epoxied on, and one was white and one was black. And I'm sitting here thinking, did they use some kind of food safe pigment to make them those colors?
Well, if you've ever watched like the Stone Coat countertops, because they've got so many YouTube videos that the ones I've seen, and this is just my personal viewing, they all use spray paint to do the colorants. So spray paint is certainly not food safe, but they also tell you have to do flood coats. Every single one of their videos says you have to do a flood coat. So if you're just straight mixing it and that's it, if you're using spray paint, you're kind of doing it wrong. So I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, food for thought there.
But that doesn't mean that theirs isn't, right? Because say you had a colored, say they mixed it with some kind of black dye or ink or something, and they put it on there. Well, if you put the clear flood coat on it, you're not going to necessarily see the clear flood coat.
Nope.
Especially if you're not covering anything but the area that's already been colored. So could very well have that thin flood coat on there that you just can't see.
Yeah. And I didn't see him do it. That's just why I was curious.
Yeah. I was going to ask something else, but then I went memory blank while you're asking about that.
Sorry.
Oh, so what if I don't? So say I'd make that Cuticarry board, and I do a Maui wave or the Gulf of Mexico wave. That's an inside joke. I'm gonna try to do a epoxy pour with the Gulf of Mexico browns. But so on like your board, you don't cover the whole board. You cover a quarter to a half of the board with epoxy. And what if I don't want to put a flood coat over the entire board? Can you do just a flood coat like over top of the wave section? Is that possible without getting like too
absolutely
much?
You just have to just go slow. Wait, give it a few minutes to kind of straight from mixing, let it settle for a few minutes so it already starts reacting, and start at the bottom and work your way up, and don't be afraid to put on some gloves and get messy.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some more of the little tricks behind it. I know one of the biggest things that I learned from you is being able to reuse like the plastic cups.
Yes.
Like I never thought that epoxy would just pop outside of those cups. I always throw them away, but they do, right? They pop out of the thicker of the plastic cups, like your mixing cups that you get in like the paint section, things like that. The epoxy pops out of them, and Jess has a pretty cool way of being able to get that done. You want to share that?
If you you stick your stirring stick. I use popsicle sticks. I buy them in bulk. You leave your popsicle stick in there, and when it's hard, you kind of roll it like you would like a hard-boiled egg. You roll the cup, and then because you've got the stick in there, you just start cranking on the stick, and it's kind of satisfying. It just pops out and peels off the side, and it's a complete. You can do it with solo cups. Yeah. You just sit there and you can peel them out and keep reusing them until you break the cup.
Yeah,
and then you play with it afterward, don't you?
Yeah, you sit there. They're like push-up pops when they come out and they're on the stick, and then you've got the little cone. It's like a push-up pop.
Do you lick it like a push-up pop?
Oh no. Yeah, gotta make sure it's food safe to do that.
Right? Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, she doesn't ever have to worry about it because I'm out there like cleaning up the epoxy off the table and out of the cups, and
yeah, he was having fun with it.
Surprisingly or not, it comes off of concrete pretty well too once it's dry. She was showing me that I now. What if you don't have sealed concrete or polished concrete? I wonder.
Your SOL?
Yeah,
because I imagine
an
epoxy floor like I do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think most of them would come off because they're not really, and if they don't, so here's a trick: if you can't get it off, take your heat gun and crank it up as high as you can, and get a spackle knife, heat it up, and get that spackle knife underneath there, and it'll lift it right off.
Oh, tricks of the trade, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah, heat it up, peel it off.
Well, there's lots of good information. I do want to ask before we kind of settle down for the rest of the podcast and call it a night. Because you are really, really well versed in epoxy, and people that are like me who have only done a floppy art resin cross. So, what is the one piece of advice that you could give any of these beginners that want to try and at least start doing an epoxy project?
It's funny because yes, we've already said we're on take 2, and I was thinking about this after the last one. My answer then, and it still stays pretty strong now, is to buy the resin that you're going to be using. You cannot buy $5 quick set 2-tube resin and expect the same results that you're going to get with some, like say Total Boat tabletop there. That you need to become versed with one, and then you can keep on mastering ones behind that. So that was my initial answer, was to get a good resin, practice with it, and start achieving your results. And I still think that is mine. I was also thinking that starting with a good size project, which seems very counterproductive. It's really hard to fit a learning lesson on a 6x6 scrap of wood, but you can get a lot done on a 2-foot, a 24 by 24 inch section. So I think I would add that to getting a good resin. Give yourself enough space to work.
Okay. So a much bigger canvas is easier to learn with a epoxy medium.
It is. It's a little bit scary because it's expensive, but you can learn so much more with how it moves and how little you need. That's the other thing. People use so much. I'm looking at the waste, and it's just you don't need as much as you think you do.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen you like that little inlay that you did, that big circle or something.
Oh, yeah.
You nailed it. How much you mixed, because by the time you got back to the end, your cup was practically empty.
Yeah, that's obviously learned, but just kind of start a little bit small. Start with a big canvas and a little amount of resin.
Because you can always mix more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. So onto that of talking about like just using a little bit amount of resin and kind of watching it work. Hit on a little bit what you were talking to me about, not overworking the epoxy when you try to do a pour, and having some patience behind that.
Well, I think that because your first initial reaction with epoxy when you pour it is like, well, okay, there it is. It's done. It's here. It's done. I've got 45 minutes to work with it. So I'm rushing and I'm trying to get it done. And one of the biggest things that I hit on in my tutorial is that you have to actually look at it like moving with a purpose. I have a whole entire section devoted to that. We're not rushing. We're not moving fast. We're moving with a purpose. And if you sit there and you do your thing, let the resin sit for a couple of minutes, watch it, then go back and revisit it. But if you keep hitting it with heat and touching it and stirring it and moving it about. Now, this obviously doesn't apply to river tables because you kind of set those and you go. And if you want to add swirlies, you add swirlies. But if you're trying to get more creative, stop touching it. Let it sit. Go back, revisit it. You typically have between the 30 to 45 minute pot time, which means the time that you mix it to the time that it becomes immovable. So again, moving with a purpose, but that doesn't mean we're rushing.
Yeah, because that's it. When I was practicing that, I was trying to use the heat gun to move the epoxy a lot, and she was like, just stop, see what it's going to do, and if you don't like how it's turning out in a couple minutes, then you add a little bit more heat to it and move it around a little bit. But when you move it with the heat gun, and you say, okay, that's good, that looks good, exactly like that. Well, it's gonna move still. When you're done, the epoxy is going to settle a little bit. The color variations are going to set where they're going to move. They're going to lace a little bit more. So that I think that was one of the biggest things that I took away from that is let the epoxy work itself and see what it's going to do.
It's a liquid, so it's going to keep shifting and moving. So it's important to recognize that it's not going to be stuck where it is until it sets. And if you're doing something large like a big pour, you really need to just be patient. And on the waves, for instance, it's going to creep. It's going to creep and it's going to move. So kind of put some engineering skills in your head and account for that, and you'll find a much happier result.
Yeah.
Cool.
The last thing I want to hit on before we move
before
on
Drew falls asleep.
The shop temperature.
Yes.
And have an appropriate temperature for working with epoxy.
So I'm working right now.
Oh,
nice. Is that permanent marker?
Maybe.
Like a kid.
I am. This is why my hands are usually covered. The day before you do your pour, or at least 10 to 12 hours ahead of time. What was that? That was weird. 10 to 12 hours ahead of time, put your shop at like 75 degrees if you can, minimum of 72. Let the resin come up to temperature, and then the day of your pour, keep it stable and consistent. And then for 12 hours afterwards, you need to keep it stable and consistent. Resin likes to be coddled. It likes to be warm. Humidity down the south, down the States, plays a bigger role than here. So you also need to kind of be aware of, if you've got 6 days of thunderstorms rolling in, you might want to be a little cognizant of that and wait.
Yeah.
Unless you have something that can take the humidity out of your room, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. And with certain type of epoxies, and I know this really with art resin because that's I've done a lot of that, is if you can't get your shop up to that temperature, you don't have the capability, it's not insulated or whatever it is, if you can't get it up to that temperature and keep it, if you use a lower VOC epoxy like art resin, which is they rate it at a 0 VOC, you can use that in your house, and because your house is usually a pretty stable temperature, and it's easier to heat that to heat the house up. And in a lot of people's shops, especially if they don't have a dedicated heating or cooling system, so you can pour in your house, take obviously the proper safety precautions of putting down plastic and stuff like that. But that is another option if you're going to do some epoxy pour with a lower VOC resin.
Yeah, I have straight up during my busy time, I have poured in my dining room. You lay plastic down, and I have poured multiple things in my dining room when my shop was not capable of doing it. Or again, if I'm in the shop doing cut days and things haven't settled down, I have absolutely poured in my dining room.
So what you're saying is when you build a new shop, you need to have a dedicated pour room.
Yes, I am looking into the Miracle Truss building currently as we speak. Well, maybe not right this moment, but I was earlier. So I'm looking into a Miracle Truss building, and in there, I'm going to have a dedicated pour room. Oops.
Nice.
So goals.
Yeah, baby steps.
Right?
Well, I know what you mean. I need a spray booth room, or a spray room at least. Okay.
Yeah.
So, do we have anything more that we want to add before we close this down?
No. We can do what's new real quick. We're currently doing the 3rd annual build off. The last 2 years we've done cutting board build offs. This year we're doing outdoor themed. So if you can have outdoor furniture, or you're going to do something entertainment-wise, maybe some yard dice, a cornhole board, something that's other than furniture, maybe a grilling station, whatever. Any of those things, those are our 2 categories, and then we have a random category. So as long as you've built something for the build-off, you can go enter that random category for all the grand prizes. It's got a bigger package of things to do, but we do have some awesome sponsors this year that are providing some pretty stellar gift or prize packs. So go check that out over at woodshop101.com/build-off and get entered. You have until June 15th to build and have your entry done.
And we also have some of our prizes listed on our Instagram as well. So if you guys follow us there, you can check out some of them there.
Yep.
All right, very cool. Well, I need to get started on mine. I don't know if I can get one done with all the stuff I've got to do, so I guess we'll see. But, Jess, for the people that have not been able to follow you, don't know who you are, and until now, how can people talk to you further with some more epoxy questions?
On Instagram, predominantly, that's usually where you can reach me first via email, is Crow Creek Designs with an S. My website is crowcreekdesignsak.com. Then we've got TikTok, Facebook business pages are all under Crow Creek Designs as well. And then you can also find me as Jess Crow on Facebook.
Very good. And Jeremy, what about you, man?
You can find me on Instagram, Countryside Workshop, or you can find me on my website. I got a contact form there that you can use to send me an email. Twitter, don't bother because I don't even know what that is anymore. Facebook, you can get a hold of me. TikTok, if I could ever figure out how to answer direct messages through that. But yeah, so Instagram's probably the quickest way to get a hold of me.
And Sam, even though she is not here, we have missed her on the past few shows. But you can reach her through her website and Instagram for that matter. But it's samryandesigns.com. And her contact information is all there. But she is very active on Instagram, so you could probably send her a message and hear back from her in about a month. So if you want to get in contact with me, you can do so by going to my website, which is rhwoodshop.com. All my contact information is there. I'm pretty active on Instagram as well as YouTube. If you have watched a video of mine and you just want to leave a comment, I monitor my comments pretty closely and try and answer all of them. So if you want to get in contact with the podcast itself, you can email us using the email address of kickback@woodshop101podcast.com. And if you want to leave us a voicemail, just to leave us some feedback, questions, comments, concerns, even just to say, how'd you do? You can contact us at 409-234-3959, or you can use the voice memo app on your phone and email that to us. The audio quality on that is excellent, so give that a shot if you don't want to call. Also, our website, which is woodshop101podcast.com, all of our episodes are listed there, and you can binge listen if you want to and catch up on all the great stuff you have missed so far. Don't forget about being a patron. We do after shows for our patrons, and that helps keep the lights on here and helps us keep doing this more and more often. So that pretty much wraps up this episode. We want to thank Jess for being a part of it yet again for take 2. We apologize for bringing you out of hiding and to do this one more time, but we appreciate you. It was fun.
Thank you. I think we should dub the audio from this one onto the video of the last one.
Good luck with that. It'll look like a B movie or something.
It'll probably be the best one ever.
Yeah, probably. All right. Well, we, like I said, appreciate everything. We want to thank all the listeners. So from Jeremy, Sam, Jess, and myself, we want to wish you guys well. Please be safe in your shops, and we'll talk to you on the next podcast episode. So 1, 2, 3. Boom!
Boom!
Boom!